Welcome to Ask Fear and Greed, where we take your questions and do our best to answer them. I'm Michael Thompson, and good afternoon, Sean Aylmer.
Good afternoon, Michael.
Sean, today's question has come from Andy, and he has sent it in via the website. He's gone to fearandgreed.com.au, and you can do it there, or Instagram, or LinkedIn, or Facebook, or anywhere, really.
Mm-hmm.
And Andy says to us, he goes, "Hi, gents. I work very hard. You work very hard. Pretty much everyone I know works very hard." And did you just go, because you disagree with the premise of his question there?
No. I know. I totally agree with Andy.
Okay, good. Anyway, as he says, everyone's working hard, super hard. Can you tell me why Australia's productivity levels are considered very low, please?
The mysterious world of productivity.
Would you say the exciting world of productivity, Sean?
Oh, absolutely.
It is a fascinating thing, isn't it?
It's incredibly hard to measure. That's the funny thing about it. So there's two types of productivity. There's labour productivity, basically output per worker or per hour worked. And so if you've got a worker who's got higher skills or can use AI really well to, create a content or something like that, or there's good management practices, that can improve labour productivity. So that's that. There's multi-factor productivity, which is sort of output per unit of combined inputs. So it's not it is labour, but it's also labour and capital. It's the whole lot. So that's how you think about it. ABS calculates productivity by adding up all the value of the goods and services produced in a given time period, puts that on top of all like the value of labour and capital, then they multiply that by 100 and you end up with a productivity number. Now, the numbers are indexes, so they're not literally saying that is $500 billion worth of value. It's an index over time for outputs and inputs. They do that. If in year one, you've got output of 100, input of 100, 100 and 100 equals 1 times by 100. You've got the multi-factor productivity is 100. Got that. Year two, output of 107, input 105, like costs have gone up a bit. 107 and 105 times 100, that's 101.9. So you've gone from 100 to 101.9. That 1.9 is what the productivity rate is.
You know what, Sean? I think we are on the verge of a very niche form of podcasting here, which is
explaining economic concepts.
Explaining economic concepts using mathematical equations.
Yes.
Which it can probably be a little bit hard to follow when it's just audio.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So basically, the bottom line of that is output per unit of input.
Okay. So the thing is, it actually does come down. The thing that surprises me is that it actually does come down to quite a mathematical process when it feels like it's something that is almost kind of intangible and really quite difficult to measure.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with that. You sort of need a number. You have to get your mind around it somehow. What we do know is that it's a good thing. So if we're more productive, more output per unit of input, people should get paid more. For example, a company makes more profit. It probably takes some of it, but it also pays its workers more. That's a really good thing. It can result in lower prices because when you're getting more output for the same amount of input, when you're being productive, that means that you don't have to charge as much for prices. And all this whole push about inflation, saying productivity is the reason inflation isn't coming down, it's arguably it is correct because if without productivity, you're not making more goods. Okay. And so, costs are going up, but you're not making more goods. So it's, you can pay more workers, earn more profits, prices come down. It boosts economic growth. I mean, fundamentally, if you want to improve living standards in this country, you get productivity going.
Okay. I understand then the principle of kind of why it is so important and why it is good for the economy to really have this focus on productivity. What about Australia specifically? And that kind of goes back to Andy's question of kind of everyone seems to be working so hard. Why does everyone keep talking about our productivity being relatively low?
Yeah, so there's no clear answer on that. There are a few reasons that it could be. So there's been a jump in jobs and immigration that actually works against productivity growth because the inputs is the bottom number. So when you've got more people and we have low unemployment rate, that works against productivity growth. Over many years, there's probably been a lack of business investment in Australia in things like technology. And if you invest in technology, it's not like next week your productivity is going to go through the roof. By the time you implement it, get people trained, it can take 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years. We haven't had a lot of investment in that sort of stuff, and so that's hurt us as well. We've also got a really large public sector, the bureaucracy, and that can hurt productivity because generally,
careful,
shot here.
careful.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got a lot of public servants listening to us, Sean.
Generally, the private sector is more productive than the public sector. Related to that, and I'm going to get myself into trouble here, Australia also has a lot more service jobs nowadays than they did.
Right.
So you think of like government-funded roles like aged care. That's where all the employment growth has been. It's really hard to use technology to get as big an improvement in aged care. You still need someone to look after my 93-year-old mum.
Yeah, it's still very manual and it's still very hands-on, and there's only so much faster you're going to be able to get at every individual task, that kind of thing.
That's right. And that's where all our jobs growth has been, in a lot of those sorts of areas. Also, the pandemic didn't help. Work from home is probably still problematic. So there's a bunch of reasons. The other one, which people always talk about, is less business dynamism. So in a country like Australia, where you have 2 airlines, really, you have 2, 3 major telephone operators. I suppose you've got 4 banks. When you have oligopolies rather than full competition, those companies don't need to be as innovative as, let's say, in the US, where, to actually keep going, you really got to be innovative. And so that means in Australia, you can be a bit less productive.
Well, Sean, that was I would say it's a very comprehensive answer.
That's how you said that. That was really dull, but
no,
comprehensive.
It actually was. Look, to be fair, if I'm going to be honest, because I like to be honest, there were some dull moments at the start.
Yeah,
and it was when you were going through the mathematics, and I've got to reveal this. You would have seen me looking at my watch while you were doing that. It was because my Apple Watch popped up with a message, and I don't know how this happened. I must have triggered Siri or something while you were talking, and it popped up with a question, and it said, "Do you actually know what you're talking about?" And I don't know why it said this, but I took it quite personally. But overall, I think we've answered the question. I think particularly the
we've tried at least.
Yeah, but I think as you apply it to Australia, that's kind of the I suspect the mechanic for calculating productivity is always going to be a little bit opaque to a lot of people if you're not an economist. But understanding kind of how it applies to Australia, and in particular the growth of the public sector and the growth of those services jobs where you cannot actually do much more to improve productivity, I think that is really where the answer to this question lies. So well done.
Thank you.
Well done to Andy for asking a question that took us on such a journey. Thank you, Andy, for sending in the question. If you've got your own question that you would like to ask, then please send it on through via the website, fearandgreed.com.au, or go to Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, send it through there. We'll pop it on the list and we'll get to it ASAP. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Michael Thompson, and this is Ask Fear and Greed.